Redzone coverage of the 2021 ITA Kickoff weekend. What a first 2 days it has been of the 2021 college tennis season. So many exciting results on the court, a little bit of drama off the court as well. And joining me on today's stream to talk about it all, as he always does whenever we're chatting college tennis here at Cracked Racquets. You know him as the forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, and of course, one of the many dames, slightly disappointed, but nevertheless still rooting for the Liberty Flames. It's Chris Halioris. Chris, 2 days in the books. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I feel like we're getting shortchanged with only one match today. I mean, I was ready for the long weekend. A lot of things happen. So, we just get to cover the one match today. It's all good. But yeah, it's been a great weekend.
So that's the place we have to start today's coverage. Obviously, our team was planning to come back at 10 a.m. this morning to cover all the action happening in Ann Arbor. But of course, all of us learned late last night that that wasn't going to be the case. The state health department in Michigan shutting down the University of Michigan athletic program for the next 2 weeks as someone had tested positive, I believe a couple positive tests for the newest strain of the coronavirus. And look, we all knew coming into this season that was going to be something all of us as tennis fans, all of us just in life, are going to have to continue to negotiate. And this is its first impact on this 2021 season. Of course, we've seen some absences in lineups across the country, but this is our first full-fledged cancellation of a kickoff weekend event, Chris. And, obviously it's out of the control of these teams' hands, out of the players' hands, but it does feel like this is something we could have anticipated. And, again, I think the good news is for everyone that, Texas A&M, Baylor, they're both Texas schools. They're going to get to play their match. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see Michigan versus Pepperdine, but your reaction to everything we've seen come out of Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very fortunate that we're talking about Texas A&M and Baylor here, right? I mean, if that had come down one day sooner and we hadn't even played those first rounds, now you throw Michigan and Pepperdine in the mix. And granted, Michigan would have been out regardless on the 2-week pause. But Pepperdine, right now you've got a California school and 2 Texas schools. Now, logistically, it becomes much tougher to stage that event. So lucky for us that it was that, and that it was 2 schools that, play even at each other's sites often, as A&M will use the Baylor indoor courts during the year at points when necessary. So I think we're very fortunate there. And yeah, something was bound to happen. The fact that from the day that all the testing results came back for these schools, that we had no last minute bailouts or cancellations from any schools, made it all the way through the weekend, and everybody has made it to this point so far. And that's the only thing that's happened. I still take that as a positive. Obviously, that's not what we wanted to see, but one match canceled, and that can be easily made up somewhere here in the next 2 weeks. I'll be okay with that if that's where we end up.
Absolutely. And look, the priorities are the safety, the health of all of these players, every program, both in the long term and, of course, in the immediate future as well. But yeah, I mean, when Stanford pulled out of the event, they lost Stanford as a women's host site. They were able to move that to Pepperdine in far enough advance that it didn't feel like as big of a problem. Obviously, it sucks for all of these athletes, for all of us fans who were looking forward to the action continuing in Ann Arbor. But you can understand why this decision was made. And again, given that Texas A&M, Baylor, the logistics of getting those two to play a round of 16 match to see who goes to the national indoors, I think that's something none of us college tennis fans have to worry about. I think they'll figure it out. I'm pretty sure Coach Michael Woodson for Baylor, you could tell him, hey, we're going to play in the airport landing area. And he'd be like, down, perfect. Let's go play the match right now. So I don't have to worry about that match being played. Obviously, we are disappointed we're not going to get to see that, but we do get to see some really fun tennis today. And unfortunately, it's one match. It's an abbreviated match, but it's the number 1 team in the country, according to the ITA preseason rankings, the USC Trojans taking on UNLV this morning in Los Angeles. And I say this morning because there it's 11:30. Here, obviously on the East Coast, it's 2:30 p.m. But we're going to go now live to some singles action. And a reminder for all of you listeners, we'll start with court 1, where we have objectively probably our best matchup on the day in number 1 preseason singles rankings ranked player in the country, number one doubles player in the country as well. Daniel Kucherman taking on Alex Cobelt, the former Buckeye, now UNLV running Rebel, and we'll kick off our coverage there. But I want some of you may be asking, wait, it's college tennis. Don't they usually play doubles first? Some of you may remember yesterday, unfortunately, we had a little bit of rain on the West Coast in Los Angeles that wiped away this match, which was supposed to be played then, and it forced UCLA and Cal, the other two teams in the region, to play a singles first format. So in the name of the rules, USC UNLV going to do the same thing today. That's why we start out here with 6 singles matches, and we'll get up into the lineup momentarily. But Chris, let's just start with the broader view. Your thoughts on today's matchup between the Trojans and the Rebels?
Yeah, UNLV obviously a last minute, if you will, fill in this region after UCF was unable to travel, and they had to go quite a ways down to try to find somebody to fill in that spot. Presumably because not only one factor being that it's LA and it's tough, but it's a heavy area, concentration wise from COVID, and so skepticism going there. But even beyond that, it's just there aren't that many schools within driving distance, so it became particularly problematic. Had to go down a little bit. So for those reasons, UNLV probably comes in, severely undermanned against a really strong USC team that will be primarily only missing Morbolis. Coach Macy told us in his guest pop-in surprise appearance yesterday that Moore was still quarantined. So I think that was just from traveling back. Not that anything was wrong with Moore, but yeah, it's going to be a rough uphill battle. And like you said, the match to watch here probably Cobelt and Kucherman might be a much more interesting match had we been indoors, having seen Alex Cobelt for Ohio State back in the indoors a couple of years ago. But he transferred to UNLV, the number one player there now. And yeah, I think that's the marquee match, but it's probably going to we're probably going to see 4 pretty quick victories on the Trojan side.
And we don't see any players on court yet. As soon as they get out there, we will let you know. We'll stick with some footage of the courts, though, just so you can see it when we can. A quick run through of the lineups today for both the Trojans and the UNLV Rebels. We'll start with USC starting out at the top of the lineup. As we mentioned, it's the number one player in the country, Daniel Kucherman. For the Trojans, returning senior Riley Smith, who obviously in the indoor portion of the season, we know he's going to thrive. We know that serve, that forehand, it translates on any sort of court. So that sort of power tennis at number 2, a great contrast for the Trojans there. At the number 3 position, a player I certainly have circled as someone who I think can make that typical sophomore leap, join the elite ranks of college tennis players. Stefan Dostanic lining up at number 3 for USC. At number 4, it's going to be Bradley Fry. Number 5, Ryder Jackson. Number 6, we're going to get to see the freshman, Chris Ludwig Vestrate, starting out at the 6th position for the Trojans. Now, for UNLV, we see Alex Cobelt, as you mentioned, former Ohio State Buckeye, playing number 1. Number 2, going to be Eric Samuelson. 3, Jordan Sauer. 4, Milos Dabic. 5, Anton Ornborg. And number 6, going to be Clayton Alnick, lining up for UNLV. Your thoughts on the way the singles lineup break down today?
Yeah, I mean, interesting to see, Dostanic get the call at number 3, as you had predicted preseason. So that'll be a good spot for him. Again, I would like to say maybe more so tomorrow, but even at that, UCLA a little undermanned, no Govind Nanda this weekend. So not quite that big step yet for him, but it'll be a good test. All in all, I think, like I said, the other bright spot for us here is, we get, as you said, we get a look at the freshman Ludwig Vestrate for USC playing in the 6th spot. He just came over at the end of December. It wasn't there in the fall, obviously. So his first indoctrination into that dual match atmosphere.
Absolutely. And I'm pulling up the UTR comparisons for all of you now, but let's go where we always go first. Match calculus, Chris, the 4 flights, because I think we both agree and we see the players on court now, by the way, for both the Trojans and UNLV. But give me the 4 you think finish up first for USC.
Well, I've got to like Kucherman. I think the Riley Smith, just as big as he's never in long rallies anyway. So that's got to be a match. I think Kucherman, that match as well, because Kobelt's not one going to want to sit in a long rally with him either. I think that's a pretty quick match. And then I don't know. I mean, I think we get those first two, and I'm not sure. I haven't seen West Strait play, so I'm not sure what we're going to look for there. I would tend to think that might be one of the longer matches out there. So maybe he doesn't get to finish. So I'll say maybe the top three and Ryder Jackson, maybe 1, 2, 3, and 5.
So you look at the UTR Power 6 comparisons, USC in 80.3 with the lineup they're playing today. And by the way, you see it now, Daniel Kucherman getting play underway against Alex Kobelt. Kucherman on the near side of your court in the gray and the backwards hat. Tough to say exactly what the Rebels are rocking right now. It looks very Las Vegas-y. I see a couple of cross patterns, multiple colors, but that is Daniel Kucherman, the number one player in the nation, serving on the near side.
And obviously, Kobelt, the left-hander, rocking the one-handed backhand as well.
Gotta love a lefty with a one-hander, right? Well, if that's a preview of this match, folks, we're in for a really fun one.
Well, I think that's a preview from the perspective of, you saw Kobelt decide he wanted to come in. He can't sit at the baseline all day and rally with Kucherman. I mean, his game, especially indoors, is, serve and volley, get to the net. He's going to have to get to the net on his serve and even on Kucherman's chip and charge and get in.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, today, USC with their lineup in 80.3 Power 6. You want to try and guess UNLV's number, Chris?
Oh, what did you say USC was?
Today, they're in 80.3.
80.3. So the line, and I'm guessing at the lineup that UNLV's got in there, right?
Yep.
I'll go 76.2.
73.2.
Oh, wow.
So it's tough for them today. Kucherman plus 1.09 over Kobelt. Riley Smith plus 0.99 over Samuelson. Dostanic, who, by the way, circle that one as a victory for the Trojans, 1.66 over his opponent Sauer. Now 1.3 for Bradley Fry, 1.13 for West Strait, 0.96 for Ryder Jackson against Ornberg, who, by the way, a 12.03 would be the third highest for the Runnin' Rebels, playing at 5 today. It's an uphill climb for this UNLV team, who, again, over the years, though, quietly very high quality program, mid to late 90s. Luke Smith, Tim Blinkiron, a couple of really quality teams, and battles with the Trojans over the years as well. So Kucherman holds 4-1-0. Let's go watch Stefan Dostanic if we can, Westoff, on court number 3. Dostanic taking on, again, Jordan Sauer for UNLV. And Chris, we both got the chance to watch Dostanic last year at the National Indoors. I fell in love, but curious what your thoughts are about this USC now sophomore.
Yeah, there was no question. We could tell he was going to be one of the future stars for these guys. Boy, the sun not doing us any favors here, trying to get a look at him. But in the far court, really tough to see from this side. Hopefully we'll get a little movement from that sun and not have quite so much glare. But yeah, he's a lot of talent and potential from Dostanic.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me who was feeling that as well. Yes, this sun, out of the control of super producer Daniel Westoff, he'd move it if he could. I don't think he can quite yet. His power's not quite there, but 15-30 now for Dostanic as he looks to race out to an early break lead here on court 3. And look, Dostanic was the number 2 recruit in his class, Chris, maybe number 3 at worst, was a blue chip. Coach Macy was really happy to be bringing him into the team. See a let as ball rolls over. By the way, now that we have our first look at these UNLV uniforms, Chris, thoughts?
I like it.
It's a lot.
It is. I'm not sure I get and it's really tough in this sun. I'd like to see it. It appears, with all the brightness we have here, that it's kind of just black and white. I'm not sure. I would love to see some of the red from the running Rebs in there. I can't tell if there's much. It is very busy, but I like it.
It was a pretty good start, by the way, for this UNLV team last year. 13-1, Chris, when the dual match season came to an end. Their only loss, a 4-3 at Arizona State loss. Now, they didn't play the most loaded schedule, but still.
And I want to say that had to be very near the end of the season, because we had gone quite some time into the year with a handful of undefeated teams, UNLV being one, Pepperdine being one. I believe Lipscomb and North Florida, may have been the other two that hung in for a while as undefeated. And so I'm going to guess, if you're looking at the schedule, that had to be very close to the end of that shortened season.
By the way, we have confirmation Baylor back in Waco. Obviously, we're all hoping all of these players are safe, healthy. I don't believe it was any of the players testing positive, more a broader positive trend amongst the University of Michigan athletic department, for those of you wondering. So, of course, we are wondering that as well. I know Pepperdine flew back home this morning too, Chris.
Yeah, Pepperdine and Baylor, both early morning flights today. Not sure about A&M, but yeah, they all, once they got the news, at Pepperdine, obviously, that was no question, because Michigan couldn't play regardless. I think some of us were hopeful that maybe they would just go try to find an alternate site, but that's got to be a logistical nightmare on, 2 hours notice to go find somewhere else to play the next day, and then, transport the teams and all. So because my guess is, had we been talking about like an East Coast and a West Coast school, maybe that's what would have happened. But given that they are right down the road from each other, send them home. We'll figure it out at a later point in time, a luxury they've got just because of the two teams involved.
Said it for years. You beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, we're going to shut the city down on you. So that's what you get. But no, obviously Coach Denton, he just wants to bathe in that winter weather. He loves it so much. He's like, let me stick around for an extra day or two.
They really shut the city down every time after the Ohio State football game?
Yes.
Sorry.
But that's for other reasons. It's a fair point. All right, Westhoff, let's go to court number 2 if we can, because Riley Smith currently 1-all, 15-all, taking on Eric Samuelson. Again, trying to find some better cameras angles for you. Let's go across the board if we can, Westhoff. Hit me with court 4 first. Let's see what that looks like. All right, we've got shade on court 4. We're going to stick on court 4 because Bradley Fry, 2-0 break lead over UNLV's Milos Dabic. I feel like we owe our viewers, Chris, a little shaded viewing here early on. Don't want to see them glaring at the sun too much.
Just the ability to see the ball is nice.
Mm-hmm, indeed. But so back to the broader conversation about this UNLV team, though, you're correct, by the way. That was a February 28th loss to Arizona State. 13-1 was this team. And for those of you who don't know, this team competes in the Mountain West Conference. That means they're taking on teams like UC Santa Barbara, taking on the Fresno States, the San Diego States of the world. Maybe not UC Santa Barbara, excuse me, but the Fresno States, the San Diego States, the Utah States, Boise States. Where does this team fit in that Mountain West Conference this season?
Well, they've got to be. I mean, you've got to consider them certainly to be one of the favorites in that conference. I'm trying to. Is Utah there as well?
See, this is what we always have the debate of: is Utah a Pac-12 team in tennis or not?
Utah is definitely not Pac-12.
Yeah, I think they are Mountain West for tennis. I think. I don't see them on the Rebels schedule for last year.
So they're definitely. I mean, that's definitely another school. I think if they're in there, that's a good school. But for sure, UNLV is going to be one of the favorites in that conference. We could probably, even as we're talking here, we might. Most of the conferences have done their coaches preseason polls. We got a comment on the stream that Utah is Pac-12 Utah State is Mountain West.
Yeah. So Utah did get they got the call up to the Pac-12 for tennis. I see their schedule now, full Pac-12 schedule.
Okay.
So you know what I get to say to you for the first time this weekend, Chris?
Yeah. The first time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the first time.
That's true. May not be the first of the weekend. Nevertheless, this UNLV team, again, well positioned as they bring back essentially their entire roster. Still, we'll see here how they compete against the number one Trojan team. And Chris, the story for these USC Trojans, the fact that last year they won the only national championship that was available to be won.
Can't deny that. I think we'll get reminded often of that, especially you.
Well, yes, it's something Coach Macy does like to remind me every so often, but to a broader point. And by the way, deuce point here for Fry and Dabber. Did it go the way of Fry? May have gone the way of Fry. Let's go back to court 3 now, if we can, Westhoff. I talk all about Stefan Dostanic. Down an early break here now against Jordan Sauer. Meanwhile, Kucherman, early break, 2-love up on Alex Kobelt. Clayton Alnick about to go up a 3-love single break lead on Ludwig Vestrate. So early action here on a couple of courts. But yeah, Chris, I mean, again, for this team, I think the most impressive part and probably the thing you circle if you're a Trojan fan is that they essentially won that national indoor title without Brandon Holt. Now, yes, Brandon in the final was able to act as a placeholder at number one singles, allow everyone else to play their normal position. But, Brandon obviously was very, very sick during the national indoor event, not able to play up to his normal standard. And still, this USC team had the talent, the depth to just match up with everyone they faced. Now, got a little bit of lucky with the way the draw broke down as well. I'm sure if you asked them, hey, you get Michigan in the semifinals, they would have signed up for that. But I mean, the way they beat UNC in that final, taking the doubles point, this team has everyone back, Chris. Is there any reason to think they can't do the same in 2021?
No, I don't think there's any reason to think they can't do that. We all look at them and just, from a standpoint of, say, you, me, and Maddie, we look at it and say, golly, that top 3 at North Carolina just going to be so tough to beat. So we give them the edge. But no, they're obviously right there in the conversation. They beat that North Carolina team with a Brandon Holt that, clearly was just holding the position there. They were giving that point up at the time. And they took them down. So absolutely the same thing can happen again.
Mm-hmm. And, I think the miscommunication, by the way, Dostanic getting to the break back here on court number 3, the miscommunication between us and Coach Macy when we had his Trojans at number 5. And by the way, that's going to change pretty quickly here as we get to our next edition of these rankings, now that we have a weekend of results. But the miscommunication is that at number 5, we don't think the Trojans can win the national title. If you listen to the podcast, and I know he did, and he just says this to grind our gears, but we said there were 5 teams who we had as definitively national title contenders. Now, with what happened to Ohio State this weekend, and I want to talk about, by the way, day 1 and 2 results a little bit more here during this USC match. But with what happened this weekend, I think we can agree right now, UNC with, until barring some sort of crazy upset, they're still firmly in that conversation. USC firmly in that conversation. Baylor probably still in that conversation pretty comfortably as well. But that's really it. Those are the 3 teams from the opening weekend that really distinguish themselves. We're seeing USC play for the first time right now, so some of it's a little bit projection, but we have USC right there in that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, and continue to say every time you throw Baylor in there until they go out and run away from A&M, I'm going to leave A&M in there too. So I'm not giving up on those guys. But yeah, they're absolutely, those schools all very, very comfortably in our picks for contenders for a national title. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. And we see here Dostanic, by the way, 40 love up now. Let's go back to court one, Westhoff, if we can, watch a little bit of the Cookerman co-belt action here. Enjoy the shaded camera as well. But we're talking about that national title contender, Chris. One of the big takeaways for me, and for those of you on the stream, by the way, welcome back. It's great to have all of you with us. Thank you for choosing to watch a little bit of college tennis prior to the NFL playoffs getting underway here this afternoon. Again, that NFL playoffs, good for the TV in front of you, but make sure you have the volume on here on this YouTube channel because you don't want to miss any of the action going on in the college tennis world. And, something we were so proud of doing here in this offseason for Cracked Racquets because it's a resource we have always wanted to have as college tennis fans. And finally, we have the access to do it, was to run our first coaches poll. So we contacted coaches across the country from various conferences. We asked them, hey, here are 25 schools. Vote on your top 10 coming into the season. They all had North Carolina number one. And by the way, not a single coach voted for North Carolina outside of the top two. They all had University of Southern California, aka USC, number two, and USC the only other team outside of UNC to receive first place votes. But a team I think I was surprised to see as high up on the coaches poll as they were, and a team we had a lot of reservations about coming into this ITA kickoff weekend, was the University of Florida Gators. And the big result coming last night that finished up after, I believe, our stream completed, Chris, was the fact that the University of Texas defended their home courts and once again knocked off the Gators to start a season. Once again, by the way, sweeping the top two singles positions as well and coming back from a drop doubles point to beat Florida 4-3 last night in Austin. It was Elliot Spizzirri ultimately offering the clinch for the Longhorns as he knocked off Sam Riffis, number 8 player in the country, for the Gators. Your thoughts on the result in Austin? And, I guess we can start there, but where Florida goes next.
I mean, all credit to Texas there. We all thought Florida was going to come out of there. Florida takes the doubles point, which isn't even something we necessarily expected. And then it ends up coming down in a 3-all match to the guy that that arguably is the best player on that Florida team in Sam Riffis. And Elliot Spizzirri just takes it to him, gets an early break, and holds all the way out for a 6-3 win in the third set. So definitely, and I mean, that was coming on the heels of with CM Wolde getting worked the day before, like 4-0 by Nikes Mwamba from Liberty, and turning around and beating Duarte Valle the next day. We even after the first day, we didn't feel all that great about Texas's chances the way they looked. In a pretty competitive match with Liberty. Florida also a very competitive match with Arizona, and then Texas did what they had to do. So I think surprising to us, and definitely puts all of us on notice. Yeah, we obviously probably underranked Texas a little bit. The question is, have we really overranked Florida, or is it, hey, it's a match, move on, and they'll be okay? I think that remains to be seen.
And Westhoff, if you could pull up our graphic, we have all three rankings set aside next to one another: the ITA top 10 rankings, the CR top 10 rankings, the coaches poll top 10 rankings as well. If you could pull all three up for our viewers so we can compare and contrast. And by the way, on your screen, you just saw Alex Cobelt getting the break back. So we're going to stick here on this match for a little bit as he takes on Daniel, the Kookie Monster Cookerman, number 1 player in the country for USC. And you see here now on your screen, again, UNC, USC, pretty consensus number 1 and 2, according to the ITA and coaches poll rankings. Now, we look a little bit foolish in retrospect, having Wake Forest all the way up at number 2 in our Cracked Racquets top 10 rankings. But let's point out, they played without 5 of their 6 top players this weekend. Like, I feel like that is something that is going to get overlooked later on in the year, particularly in rankings points. But given the manual, I suppose, input in the rankings this year, perhaps not. Now, we had Baylor number 3. Ohio State was number 3 in the top 10 rankings for the coaches and the ITA. We had them at number 4. Obviously, they are going to fall a little bit. Teams such as Michigan, just by virtue of not playing, or by losing Stanford, by virtue of not playing, may fall a little bit down the rankings as well. Teams like TCU, A&M going to hold firm. But something I think we probably underselled, that that I think or we undersell and got correct, that the coaches in ITA got wrong. You look for the ITA. Well, I should say the coaches. The coaches had Florida at number 6. We in the ITA had Florida at number 9. When you look at this Florida team now moving forward, again, tough start to their season, particularly given that match was played outdoors. What's the next move for this Florida team?
Well, I mean, clearly it's just get back and look ahead to the SEC season and the rest of their matches before that. But I think there's a little, they've got to figure out what they're doing in dubs. Sure, they got the dubs win over Texas, but hadn't looked great. They dropped that doubles point to Arizona. They dropped the doubles point to USF. So there's some searching there, and we even in all our talk, a lot of it was, hey, who's filling in? What's that 4 through 6 look like for the Gators? And I think that's still an open question. We know, who the top 3 are, but even at that, the problem is, who your top 3 are, but they weren't great against Texas. Vale and Rifus both lost. They weren't sweeping everything against Arizona. So yeah, I don't know how you get around that. Basically, those guys are there. They're just going to have to play better, right? But 4 through 6 is still an open question. Do we keep Johannes Ingolson at 4? Do we keep Ben Shelton at 5? Do we keep Blaise Bicknell at 6? I don't think Blaise Bicknell gets out of the lineup. And if anything, I think maybe he actually moves up. But the other guys, we've talked long and hard about, wow, how do you keep Lucas Greif out of the lineup? And surely at some point during that season, we're going to see him in the lineup. The question is when, and when the really important matches come, when we get to that SEC season, is that when it starts? They've got a good match. I mean, they get right back to it. They go next weekend, and they get a couple of in-state teams that are decent teams. UCF, who's a top 20 type team, and then Florida State. Florida State not as good, a little bit of a down year maybe for them, so that's probably a more comfortable match for them. But that UCF match, which is at the USTA Lake Nona, that could be a tricky match, and another good shot for them to kind of work into what that lineup is going to be. And then they start after that with the SEC team. So, not much time. You get till Friday to get back to it against UCF. And I think I highly suspect we'll see a different lineup than they threw out there for this weekend, and trying some different things, and maybe even in doubles.
If you're Coach Shelton and Coach Stump and you have a 3-all match coming down to a third set with Sam Rifus at number 2 singles, you take that scenario 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, and for them to not get the victory there, that's just that's a flat out disappointment. And by the way, you see Alex Cobelt, 2 big serves, help him fight off 2 break points, so he holds for 3-all here on court number 1. But yeah, I mean, look, Lucas Greif sitting on the bench, how he is not in this lineup, I'll never understand, because he is so rock solid. And obviously Ingledson's going to Ingledson. Every match he plays, it doesn't really matter the position. I can tell you right now it's going 3 sets. And that was the case obviously for them yesterday. But no, there's just a lot of lineup questions. They have 9 guys who could probably all play anywhere on any given day. And sometimes that's a blessing, but other times that's a burden. And right now it is a burden for this Florida team as they try to figure out where they want to go, or I guess where they can go during this 2021 season, particularly when you look at the SEC, given Georgia, A&M, Tennessee. They're all really, really good teams that on the wrong day can beat anyone. So obviously on the right day, I should say, for them, can beat anyone. So it's something to monitor. But let's look at the flip side of this, because we've gotten this question in the comments, and it's something I wanted to mention as well. You look at this Texas team, Chris, and, we talked about them. They were on the outskirts of the top 10, not in our top 10, but certainly a team we thought could be top 16. And the reason we think that is because unequivocally, this team's got a ton of depth, right? You look at guys like Chi Huang, Cleve Harper, Jacob Bullard, and Evan McDonald, Leighton Allen as a freshman as well. And then you've got their, pretty clear top three talents of Micah Braswell and obviously Elliot Spizzirri and CM Waldeeb and just I think all three. I think the question we had why we had them outside the top 10 is we liked their depth a lot. We thought 4 through 6 they could compete with anyone, but could the young guys at 1, 2, 3 match up with the top 10 teams in the country? I mean, yesterday they went 2-1 in the top 3 positions against Florida. So when you look at this Texas team, and Scott Bancal asked, how do you think they could do at the indoors? Do you think they can beat anybody? Where do you have them heading into that event?
Well, I think that they're going to be. I mean, it's tough because they use the rankings. In my mind, I'm thinking that they're the 5 seed in that 4-5 matchup. I mean, clearly Illinois is going to be the 8 seed. They're the hosts. They're in by virtue of that. But by the virtue of the fact that they will primarily use rankings, and what the ITA will do is they'll have kind of an unpublished ranking so they'll have another round of rankings after all of this play leading up to that event. They'll do another ranking that they won't publish out, and that ranking will be what is used to seed these teams, just kind of in order of where they stand in that ranking. We had Texas down, but the ITA still had them ranked fairly high. And when I say fairly high, certainly in front of Tennessee and Virginia. And even with the big win for Virginia over Ohio State, it's a big win for Texas over Florida. You can't drop them for that. So Texas has still got to be in front of Tennessee and Virginia. And so if you have Tennessee and Virginia in some order, and I don't know what that is, say at 6, 7, Illinois at 8, that puts Texas right there at the 5 spot, right? And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. And so Texas there with your top, presumably the top 2 in whichever order the ITA puts them, being North Carolina and USC. And then I'm going to guess 3 and 4 are the winner of Baylor A&M and TCU. So can Texas beat one of those teams? Assuming they're the 5 seed, they're going to get the 4, which means they get either Baylor A&M or TCU. And that's assuming TCU beats Oklahoma today. Would be a big shakeup if Oklahoma were to win that. But assuming that's the case, yeah, I mean, I think they can beat a TCU. They'll definitely get, if it comes out like a bracket and they're the 4-5 and they lose, they would get the loser of the 1-8, which means they're going to play Illinois. Yes, they can beat Illinois. So I fully expect that they're not walking out of that indoors 0-3. Very, very unlikely they walk out of indoors 0-3. Only one team can, right? There's only 8 teams. Only one team's going to lose 3 matches. I don't think it's going to be Texas.
And you see us now, by the way, currently on court 4, where Bradley Fry of USC 2 set points now, up 5-2, 30-40. But no, I think the depth of this Texas team, and I think the most impressive thing is they feel very, very 2 years away, right? It feels like they are the sort of team that, again, much like they were in 2019, the depth they're going to have between Huang and Harper and Bullard and Braswell and Spizzirri and Waldeep, just all 6 of those guys. If you're Coach Bruce Burke, yeah, you keep recruiting for guys like Leighton Allen and other talents you can find, but you're like, okay, I have my 6. You're like, I feel pretty good for these next 3 years. I know, I am going to have the depth to compete to find these matches. And by the way, Bradley Fry taking the decision on court 4, Riley Smith taking a 6-2 decision on court 2. So let's go to court 3, Westoff, if we can, where currently Stefan Dostanic 5-3 up now, going to serve for his first set against Jordan Sauer as well. Currently 4-2 Trojans on courts 5 and 6 as well. So again, we'll try and hit the end for all of these sets. But yeah, I think Texas probably still needs to figure out their doubles teams. I think even Coach Burke would say that as well. A lot of experimenting can go on when now you have 6 different guys and a bunch of people who haven't really played together. So I think that's something he actually kind of looks forward to, because you're like, okay, we still have room for growth, even though this was a really good result here this week. But we've seen Waldeep, we've seen Spaziri. Spaziri hits the freaking cover off the ball, Chris. Like, that's a guy who's got top 2 talent. Waldeep, same deal, top 2 talent when healthy. This team's really, really good. I don't know if they're a national title contender, but they're going to be in the mix. Another one of those teams. If you see them in the quarterfinals of the NCAA tournament, don't be shocked.
Yeah, you're right. Right on all points, especially the Dubs. I think that's a team that you really have to be concerned for the doubles. Look, I know obviously probably more than most, a little more about that Liberty team. The doubles for Liberty, not good. They played Texas pretty close. Okay. That's already concerning. And then they turn around and drop the doubles point to Florida, who had lost their last 2 doubles points. So definitely something to look at. Texas really needs to look in their doubles, because if you walk into indoors and drop, I don't care if it's, whether you're playing TCU, Baylor, and A&M the first match, or playing Illinois in your second match, you drop the doubles points to any of those teams. They've all got firepower at the top of the lineup. So, it's very tough to win 4 singles matches. Sure, they did it against Florida, but are you going to make a living unless you're Tony Bresky with Petros and Borna and Skander in the lineup? No, you're not. You're not making a living dropping the doubles point and winning 4 singles every day. So that's a little concerning part. But yeah, and I'm also with you. I'm not throwing them in that national title contender spot just yet, but definitely a solid. And I don't even have it up right now. I will tell you, after all the weekend's results, I did go and reorder my live rankings on my site. You probably pull them up quicker than I can, Gruskin, but I slid them up. I'm going to say somewhere, I don't even know, somewhere between 8 and 12, maybe. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, it's with what they showed me, I was a little impressed, and admit that I probably underestimated Waldeep, Spaziri, and Braswell in the top 3 spots. I knew those guys with experience down low were going to be okay. I wasn't sure about the younger guys at the top.
Westoff, can you let us know in the comments for me and Chris if we currently have video turned on us? Because if not, I have a gesture I would like to make at Chris now that I'm currently looking at his live rankings. And okay, we are on camera. I'm not going to make that gesture. Let's just say I have 5 fingers. I would show him one of them in particular, because he currently has Michigan at number 14 in his live rankings. You have Texas at number 7 right now.
It's the number 1. It's the number 1 finger for North Carolina.
Yeah. No, USC. You know how we're watching the Trojans, and it's like, go Trojans, right? You have the 2 fingers up. Yeah. Well, I don't really need this one. To point to you. You're a good man. But no, University of Texas currently number 7. On your rankings, Chris. And yeah, that they probably, I'm looking at your rankings. They're very interesting. Florida 13, Michigan 14, Wake Forest still 9.
That was the interesting one, right? I mean, you have to penalize Wake Forest for losing. At the same time, they lost without 5 of their guys. So, if you ask me, I would be tempted to throw it out altogether and say, no, just leave Wake where they were. But they still played a match and lost, so it's got to count for something. So I'll let them get their real lineup back and work their way back up, if you will. But yeah, I had to drop them for losing that match, but maybe not quite as harshly as, Florida and Michigan for their losses.
And if we can, and go to court 6 now, please, Westoff, where we have Ludwig Westrate looking to close out his first set against Clayton Alnick. For UNLV, by the way, currently. Actually, let's go to court 1 if we can. Deuce point between Kucherman and Kobelt, 4-3 right now. So it's going to be Kobelt serving in that deuce point to look to hold. Stick around here in set number 1.
We also had a question out there in the comments, Alex. Somebody asked about what happened to Stanford. Aren't they hosting? So I
believe that was Jin. Yes, Jin did ask. Will you let them know?
So 2 things. Stanford was not a host to begin with. They were the team that got to pick first in the draft. They did participate in the draft. They selected the North Carolina State region to go to and be the number 2 seed at North Carolina State. And then that draft was held on a Monday, I believe. 4 days later, that Friday, Stanford was informed, the athletic programs were informed by the schools that nobody on campus until the 24th or 5th, including athletics. which basically precluded them from being able to even participate in this kickoff weekend. So they had to withdraw at that point. So Stanford not in the kickoff weekend for that reason, and that's why we don't see them here.
Mm-hmm. And just again, another update on the scoreboard. Riley Smith, Stefan Dostanic, Bradley Fry, 6-2 sets or 6-3 first sets, all going the way of the Trojans right now. The Trojans also lead 5-2 on courts 5 and 6. Here on your screen, Daniel Kucherman gets the break of Alex Cobelt at the deuce point. Now up 15-love and just dropping a ridiculous forehand lob over the 6'5" Cobelt's head. It is interesting, though, Chris, watching what we've seen unfold this weekend, the success of the Virginias of the world and the Texases of the world, and perhaps the lack of success of teams like Florida and NC State and, Michigan with the established players that they have. Where do you hold Stanford right now? Did their stock go up in your head? Their stock go down in your head just by virtue of not playing this weekend?
I don't think it moved much at all. I mean, they're still a very good team. You're looking at my rankings. I'm not. What do I have them?
You currently have Stanford as the number 4 team in the country. So currently Stanford matches up with, let's say, I don't know, Ohio State. Who are you taking right now? Neutral site match outdoors.
Neutral site outdoors. I'll take Stanford.
It's probably a good pick. I think it's interesting because I don't think I would have felt that way before this weekend. I may feel that way
when you combine what we think about Stanford with what we saw from Ohio State indoors, it's hard not to do that. But I'll say this, and I say it every time we talk about a team with freshmen. And, Virginia has shown, obviously it's not the rule. There are exceptions to the rule, but generally freshmen are very tough, especially freshmen that aren't from the United States. They have a tough time adapting and getting into that college game. So you're going to bring Tristan Boyer's already, he's American. He knows what it's all about. Arthur Ferry's, I don't even know if he's here yet. He was playing a futures tournament.
Westhoff, can you go? Sorry to cut you off, Westhoff. Can you go to court 6, please, as we see Kucherman take the first set? Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, Arthur Ferry was playing overseas this week, still obviously meaning he wasn't on campus then. I don't know if he is now, hasn't been in a college tennis environment. It takes a little adapting. Sure, he is. There is nobody that's going to question a very, very talented kid and is, the top newcomer in the ITA for a reason. But it takes a little adapting, and you might see a couple early struggles, but yes, they've got such a great recruiting class, such a good team there that it's hard not to put them up there. But am I going to jump out and say I think they're better than USC? No, I'm not. I personally had USC at number 2. As somebody in the chat who will remain nameless says USC is highly overrated.
Can you go court 5, Westhoff? Sorry, go ahead.
But a little shot at Coach Quinta there. But no. Yeah, I think Stanford's a really good team. I fully expect to see them making a deep run in the tournament. Should we get to actually see them play? You never know with the things that are going on. So I'm hopeful that we get everything under control and we see Stanford out there playing soon, and with these freshmen in particular.
We see right now on your screen, by the way, Ryder Jackson, deuce point, set point, going his way. So now it's a sweep for the Trojans on all 6 courts. Westhoff, let's go to court 2. We haven't enjoyed as much Riley Smith as we probably should have. That's because the sun, the glare on his court, particularly unfortunate, but he currently leads 6-2, 2-1. Bradley Fry, 6-2, 2-0 up at court number 4. Dostanic, 6-3, 1-0 up. Let's go to court 3, actually, Westhoff, if we can. Break point here for Dostanic. Oh, it looks like he already got that break, so now it's 6-3, 2-0 up. Dostanic over Sauer, so they've got a couple of early break leads across the board. Let's go back to Smith if we can, Westhoff, on court 2. Let's see what the big – bless you, thank you – what the big man has in store for
Kucherman
us
definitely looks like he's not going to help my pick of him being one of the first 4 to finish.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I forgot. You know what's interesting? I forgot for a second. I thought they only needed 3. You're right. Who's going to be the 4? So it is looking like the pet recipe 2, 3, 4. Give me Ryder Jackson 5. I think they sweep the middle.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had 1, 2, 3, and 5, but Ryder and Kucherman are definitely. Well, actually, they just finished on 5 and 6 evenly, so it's definitely 2, 3, and 4 are further ahead. So those are good bets there.
We see here again Riley Smith, Eric Samuelson, currently Samuelson, 40 love. Yeah, you can throw a return game away every so often when you serve like Riley Smith does.
Yeah, I don't know. Super producer Westoff, much more the cinematographer than I am. Is this really a fact of the? It's just the sun, or would some sort of screen over the top of the camera help this out?
If any of our listeners know that, please feel free to add that answer in the comments.
I feel like I want to add a shade over the top of that, and it would somehow help, but maybe not.
Yeah, I just don't get why the camera on court 1 is fine, but the camera on court 2 is not fine. Cobalt ball yanks a little bit wide. Kucherman not thrilled with the call here on court 1, so always like a little drama unfolding there. Let's go to court 1 if we can, Westoff. Kucherman, Cobalt, first game of that second set here. 40-30 now for Cobalt. By the way, Bradley Fry 6-2, 3-0 up. So he looks to be racing to the finish line.
He heard me say 1, 2, 3, and 5. He's out to prove me wrong.
You think if Ty Tucker could take it back right now, he would keep Cobalt and trade Seelig to UNLV?
No.
Trotter?
That's where I really need insight into because I have zero as to why Alex left for UNLV. Was that was it a personality conflict? Was it a playing time issue? Was it I tend to think that maybe, Cobalt obviously was going to get plenty of playing time indoors, great indoor player. When Ohio State moved outdoors, he kind of seemed to always find his way out of the lineup. So maybe it was just the fact that he wanted to play all the time. I don't really know. So clearly, if it was for other reasons, Ty's wouldn't want him back. Period. But yeah, no, I think he would still stick with Trotter, and clearly the fact that Trotter's still there after everything he took from Ty, which Ty even talked about, admittedly, was he likes Trotter clearly.
Mm-hmm. Well, Westoff, can we go to court 4, please, to watch a little Fry Dabbich here? Fry 6-2, 3-0, 30 love up on the far side of your court. But no, this is always the fun exercises we do on our Great Shot podcast. So any of you watching this stream today, you want to hear more of our Cracked Racquets college tennis coverage, be sure to go check that podcast out. You can find it on our website, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Would you trade, Chris, if you are head coach Sam Paul, would you trade Will Blumberg for Nick Stakowiak, Charlie Broom, and then one more contract filler of those 7 through 12 guys that Michael Woodson gets to pick? What's the value there? And if you're Coach Woodson, what do you have to do to say yes to that trade? I feel like it's a pretty good trade for both sides.
Okay, so first of all, if I'm Coach Woodson, because of the insane amount of depth I already have, I take that trade in a heartbeat.
1,000%, right? You're like, oh my God, we're winning.
Yeah, that's the part we already look and go, man, they're so deep if they're susceptible anywhere, it's at the top. So if you get a Will Blumberg for two of your guys, absolutely you do it in a heartbeat. If I'm Sam Paul, do I make that?
What if it's Stokowiak, Broom, and then you say fine, but you have to give me one of Soto or Boyton?
Oh, for sure, I have to take it because again, that's a little bit of the weakness, if you will, if you're gonna try to find a weakness on the Carolina team, is they're five deep if you want to include Josh Peck, who's hit or miss on occasion. So if you go five deep, but you can trade out and get three guys, yeah, I mean, I would never. First of all, I'll say this: I would never trade Will Blumberg, no matter what. But if you were saying, hey, from the team perspective, in a singles lineup, what would that do for you? Yeah, it would. I think it would bolster that singles lineup. But if I'm Sam Paul, I'm not trading Will, and no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, when you have that sure thing, number one singles, number one doubles, yeah, you probably hold on to that no matter what. It is always curious though, right? Because like if Wake Forest is like, okay, take Squire, take Banthia, and take, I don't know, one of the Italian freshmen, and then we get Blumberg. You're probably like, yeah, I still take the Blumberg side of that equation. You're like, yeah, give me Blumberg, I'm in.
Exactly.
It's the 4 quarters for $1 trade, right? Why not just keep the dollar at that point? But again, we get a couple more questions from our commentators. We got a question from SFang666, who sounds a little devilish, a little mischievous with that commentary name. Nevertheless, asks, do y'all have any insight? Did I do the y'all right? Do y'all have any insight on how all the teams will quarantine for the indoors? Hopefully won't have something like the Australian Open where entire flight has to quarantine. Now, I think super producer Daniel Westoff really liked this question because he sent it to us twice. So to you, Chris, and obviously just joking around, but Chris, have you heard anything what quarantine is going to look like for the indoors?
Specifically for indoors, no, but I don't know why it would be any different for what they did this weekend, right? You had 14 pods here. You're going to have an 18 pod there. Guys and the men and the women are separated, different weekends, different sites. So it's not combined. So it's just 8 teams. I don't know that it'll be a whole lot different than the 4. And what they did this weekend for the 14 pods is all teams had to get tested on Tuesday of this week leading up to it, results back Wednesday, and then obviously had to adjust rosters and guys traveling should anybody have come back with positive tests and then resulting contact tracing ruled anyone else out. I don't think, and it's probably a good question maybe for Corey or somebody at the ITA, I don't think they did another round of testing upon arrival and prior to the match. I think it was just the test on Tuesday, due back Wednesday. So I would assume we would see a very similar thing for indoors. Indoors would start on a Friday. I would assume the teams will test Tuesday, get results back Wednesday, and that would, or maybe even a day earlier if they're traveling, but basically have the results, need those results back before you go travel, as you can't have anybody that needs to be quarantined or whatnot for contact tracing reasons or otherwise from being able to travel.
Mm-hmm. Of course, rules will differ from city to city, person to person. So it really comes down to what does the University of Illinois require? What does Oklahoma State require from all of these teams before they head on over? We are getting updates right now, by the way, Baylor, Texas women's match being played indoors, currently in the doubles section. I believe right now Baylor winning at number 3, doubles 6-1, but doubles points still going on right there. Of course, I think Tampa's up 7-0 on Green Bay. Can't say I'm watching the game too closely right now. Obviously, I'm focused on the action here. And right now, UC Bradley Fry, 6-2, 5-0 lead. Let's go now to court number 2, if we can, Westoff, because I'm not sure they're playing right now. Might be mid changeover. We can adjust it. It is mid changeover. So let's go to court. I think they're all at changeovers right now. Court 5. Court 5 looks like we've got some current action going on right now. Ryder Jackson, 6-2, 1-all. But you look at the scoreboard right now if you're the Trojans, and again, no doubles, so you're trying to find 4 points here in singles. Bradley Fry, 6-2, 6-2-5-0 up right now. We'll get to the match point there when it happens. Stefan Dostanic, 6-3-4-1 up. Looks like he's going to get across the finish line. Ludwig Westrate, 6-2-3-0 up at number 5. Jackson, 6-2-1 all at number 1. Kucherman, 6-3-2-1. But interesting for UNLV. Now, it was 4-2 Eric Samuelson, now 4-3 Samuelson at the changeover. But UNLV making a bit of a push at the number 2 singles position. Now, again, we're going to stick here on court 5 for a little bit as we watch Ryder Jackson 6-2-1 all. But you look at the way the Trojans have performed here in this match, Chris. And by the way, if it goes to changeover at any point, feel free to kick it to wherever while you're answering this question. But your thoughts on their performances thus far?
Yeah, I mean, you got to take the positives where you can find them, right? That they knew they were going to be really outmanned in this match, as did we. But hey, you got a guy battling with Riley Smith here. That's you take that as a positive. Even Ornberg, maybe a chance in the second set to hang in there with Ryder Jackson. It's tough for them to get a lot out of it. Just look for guys that competed well. That's all they can look for. Then they're not going to win the match.
And if we can, Westoff, let's go to court 4 now. Speaking of winning the match, Bradley Fry 2 points away. But yeah, I mean, if you're the Trojans, if you're head coach Brett Macy, you love how businesslike it is right now. Don't see anyone screwing around. All 6 first sets on the board. And, yes, Riley Smith did go down a break there, but quickly got that break back. Now up 30-love in that 3-4 game. Kucherman up an early break in the second set at court 1. It's a business-like performance for the Trojans, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, Chris. But as you look at them tomorrow, matching up against the short-handed UCLA team, what do you think we can expect?
Yeah, I think we can expect just an crazy good match at number 1. Keegan Smith, Daniel Kucherman. I mean, that's the match we want to watch. Would have been, in addition, a great match between Riley Smith and Govind Nanda had the Bruins had Nanda, but unfortunately, right, that's not the case. No Nanda, no Zaraj, no Baird, definitely a shorthanded UCLA team. So I would expect that USC is gonna be able to win that match fairly comfortably. Maybe not at number 1 with Kucherman against Smith, because that'll be a heck of a match, but a little bit too much firepower for the Trojans from 2 through 6, given the fact that UCLA is missing the rest of those guys that they are.
Mm-hmm. No, and the good news is we'll get to see a little doubles point action. We'll get to see, again, the rivalry, the intensity of the USC-UCLA match. There's always a little bit extra put out in there. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say one thing we haven't talked about, haven't even mentioned yet in the broadcast here is even though we don't. Oh, and that is the match there.
So let's go to court 3 now. Westoff 6-3-5-1. Dostanic serving for the. Looking to break Sauer for the match. Sorry, I cut you off there, Chris.
I was going to say we haven't, because we're unable to broadcast it. We haven't talked much, but there is another match going on, first round match right now out in North Carolina. That being North Carolina and Northwestern, and as in our off-camera chat, we talked about something I think we expected, and that is North Carolina. No Rinky. They win the doubles point, but they pull them. So we get a look at a couple guys. And indeed, we get our first look at Logan Zapp at 6 for North Carolina. North Carolina gets doubles. The 4 guys that we talked about being up there with no Rinky, and that in Blumberg, Seguin, Cernak, and Peck, all take their first sets. But Northwestern takes first sets over Mac Kiger and over Logan Zapp at 5 and 6. So interesting. North Carolina's still probably going to walk out of there fairly comfortably. But North Carolina giving themselves a good look at Kiger and Zapp here on day 1.
Absolutely. And we see here again on your scoreboard, Stefan Dostanic now 2 points away, 6-3-5-1 up. We do get a look at Logan Zapp, though. Very excited for the young freshman. I said during our preview, I think if he's a hit for this UNC team, if he answers their question, because the only question they really have is who's going to play 6 singles. If he becomes a clear answer to that question, Chris, the Tar Heels get really, really scary. But I know, like, we're talking best of all time, like not best of all time, but we're talking in the conversation for one of the best teams, one of perhaps a chance to just run amok.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to run, even if that's the case. I don't think he can be good enough to just help them run away. No.
Like Weir's home good? What if he's Weir's home good?
I don't see a world where that happens, but
That's fair.
these other teams, just because everybody's got everybody back again, there's other teams that are still able to compete, even if that's the case.
Yeah. All right. That's fine. You can jump on my dreams. Of course, TCU Oklahoma, as you mentioned, going on today as well. So we'll get to see the Heels in full action, of course, again. Stefan Dostanic now 6-3, 6-1 victory to put the second point on the board for the Trojans. Let's go, if we can, West, off to court 6. Let's watch a little bit of USC freshman Ludwig Vestrate, 6'2", 4'0", 30 love up on Clayton Elnick. Vestrate, a guy most coaches be itching to have at the bottom of their lineup. Just a casual 13.06 UTR sitting on the bench for the Trojans, Chris. No big deal.
Many listeners know I love nothing better than to poke at my co-host anytime I can. So thanks, Mark Yamani, I believe current stringer son of David Yamani for Wake Forest. Comments, hey, I'll use my words, not his. That idiot Gruskin keeps calling both of the freshmen Italian. He needs to know that one of them's actually from Argentina. Those are my words, not his, but, you know.
No, that's fair. Hey, great shot to him. I am an idiot. You're right. That was a mistake. Look, it's a lot of freshmen from a lot of really cool places across the country.
Yeah, we just hope we get to see those guys. Neither of them getting to play, or I don't even believe make the trip this weekend with Wake down to Fort Worth. So hopefully we'll get to see them both, that being Tachi and Maroney sometime here soon for Wake.
You see Vestrate again, 5-love lead now for him. So let's go to court. I don't know, not a lot of action left here. Let's go to court 5, I suppose. Ryder Jackson, 6-2, 2-all. So at least they're not mid-changeover. Cobalt on serve, 3-2 up in the second over Kucherman. Riley Smith now 6-2, 5-4 up.
Yeah, it looks
Ryder
like
Jackson down 5-2 now? No, okay, that was a scoreboard error. I was like, something just happened there.
2 and 6 are both within a game of finishing now. Both have 5 for the Trojans.
Okay, so 6-2, 5-0 Vestrate at 6. 6-2, 5-4 Smith at 2. So this could be the witching hour for the Trojans. And again, we will be back tomorrow to cover that USC-UCLA match. It's a work day for Chris, so not sure if we're going to be blessed with his presence. I hope so.
I hope so, too. I think if it was the middle of the day, probably not. But I do believe Coach Macy told us not before 1 p.m. Is that what he said? Which would be 4 p.m. our time.
I was going to say not before 1 p.m. West Coast, right? Which is why I was slightly optimistic.
Yeah, so I think if it's a 4 p.m., I'd say very, very good chance I can definitely get in for a 4 p.m. match.
I'd love to hear. Well, Westoff, let's go to court 6, if we can, please. Vestrate, 6-2, 5-0 up. And to your comment, Mark, I know I'll like what I'll see out of the Wake Forest freshmen. That's why they're our number 2 team in our Cracked Racquets poll. You think Chris or Matt were that smart to put them there? No. Come on. It's an Alex Gruskin. By the way, so really fun story for me. I don't know if you listeners will like it. I suppose if you stay on the stream, we'll find out. But yesterday, at the end of these days, I like to tweet out my takeaways from day 1, day 2, especially when we have that much action. Well, someone quote tweeted one of my tweets and said, because I think I said, if the Virginia freshmen are this good, Virginia is a top 10 team. And that person said, this is one for the record books. He thinks they're a top 10 team, like after they just beat Ohio State in Columbus. Like, he's making fun of Virginia. Like, 2 things, my friend. A, thank you for listening. Always appreciate that. Hey, if I'm providing you bulletin board material, I'm doing my job. So that was actually a victory for me. Part 2, you don't listen to the show. Are you trying to say I am doubting Virginia? Me? Like, I am not a Virginia fan? I have anti-Virginia bias? Get out of here.
Yeah, that's pretty poor take.
Listen to the show. Just listen.
Yeah.
If you're going to criticize me, listen to the show. That's all I ask. Because I deserve criticism. Anti-Virginianness is not one of the reasons why. But anyways, very pro Wake Forest as well, too. To get to that, I'm very much in favor of the freshmen. I mean, watching that Wake Forest team compete last year, you can see the talent they have. It's just a question of can we get everyone on the court at once. All right. So 5-all now on court 2 in that Smith-Samuelson match in that second set. So I think they're on serve there. It's going to be a race to the finish as Westrate here looking to get to match point number 1. I believe he just did. So now 6-2, 5-0, 40-30, double match point to put point number 3 on the board for the Trojans. It's Ryder Jackson 6-2, 4-1 up. Riley Smith 6-2, 5-all. Kucherman Kobelt 6-3, 3-all as well. And we'll quickly blitz through these ITA results while we are waiting. And by the way, Chris, or Westhoff, if at any point this match finishes during this rant, let's go directly to court 2 after this one to watch a little bit of Smith and Sam.
Real quick before you get into that, Alex, as pointed out in the chat, TCU in the final there did just clinch the doubles point with Famba and Alistair Gray at 1 doubles. So TCU takes a 1-0 lead into singles in that match for a spot at the indoors.
No, beautiful. And by the way, here, deuce point now. So 6-2, 5-0. Deuce point, match point for Westrate. But again, some of the results we've seen throughout the weekend in Raleigh. It was Tennessee knocking off Ole Miss, then NC State 4-2 and 4-1 respectively to advance back to the National Indoor Quarterfinals. And we do see here indeed 3-0 Trojans now, Westrate 6-2, 6-love over Alnick. We go now to Smith-Samuelson on court 2. But so in Raleigh, it was Tennessee advancing. In Columbus, as we mentioned, Virginia and those freshmen, shocking Buckeye Nation, defeating the Buckeyes in Columbus, winning the doubles point, getting wins from a couple of the freshmen, and Gianni Ross as well to advance for 2 to the National Indoor Finals. And then in Texas, it was the Longhorns, as we talked about at the top. Wins over Liberty, and then 4-3 yesterday over Florida to advance to the Final 8 in Michigan. Going to be Baylor taking on A&M. That match now going to happen in Texas as the state health department shutting down Michigan athletics moving forward. As you mentioned, Chris, TCU taking on Oklahoma right now to determine their spot in the Final 8. USC, if they win today, going to take on UCLA to determine that spot. And then finally in Chapel Hill, it was South Carolina 4-1 over Duke today. UNC, as Chris mentioned, taking the doubles point, 1-0 lead for them over Northwestern. Chris, when you look at this ITA kickoff weekend, a lot of surprising results. You, me, and Matt Scoia are going to break it all down on a Great Shot podcast early this week. But give them a little sneak preview now. Your thoughts on the first real weekend of the 2021 college tennis season.
I mean, great weekend, obviously. Just happy to have tennis back. A lot of what we expected, a couple upsets in there, but I think, the schools that we thought that were going to be at the top, I'm sure we're going to come out still very high on North Carolina, still very high on USC. Really excited to see when and where and how that Baylor A&M match turns out. I think that's a big question mark still.
And quickly,
Ohio State, Virginia was the
I'm going to ask Westhoff to go to court 5 right now. Ryder Jackson closing in on the match as well. Point. But sorry, Chris, go for it.
Yeah, Ryder Jackson with a match point here.
Mm-hmm. No, but I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, you were talking about Virginia.
But, I think a lot of what we expected, the big ones to me, really the big takeaways that were indoor affecting results, right? Texas beating Florida, Virginia beating Ohio State. So they obviously that impacted who we see it indoors, and definitely, big rankings impact likely to happen as a result of those. So I think those were the big takeaways. Yeah, the Virginia freshmen are the real deal, and the Texas top 3 can hold up there with anybody, and they're gonna be very tough to beat as well.
But we will see if any of those teams will be tough enough to beat the defending champion USC. Fantastic start to their 2021 season as they earn a 4-0 victory here over UNLV as they get wins from the 2 through 6 singles positions, Chris. And again, they will now match up with a shorthanded UCLA team. But again, anytime the teams in LA battle, there will be fireworks on the court again going on right now. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to broadcast it, but TCU taking on Oklahoma to secure their spot in the Final Eight. Give our fans a quick preview, since we're not going to be able to see it with them, of what they should expect in singles.
Yeah, we've got an extra guy in singles for the lineup for TCU today. So yesterday we saw we had no Girsek, no Paralek, no Fernley in the singles lineup. We get Girsek in the lineup today. Still no Paralek, no Fernley. So kind of wondering, but Paralek played doubles. So really the only guy I haven't even seen is Fernley. So I'm not sure. Don't know the reasons there, right? Would love to know, but yeah, I think TCU definitely the more talented team here should be able to pull away. Yet again, very disappointed we don't have a live stream because Juan Martin is playing again today, playing 6 singles against Nathan Hahn. I expect that to be a very good match. That's a match I would really like to see, Hahn and Martin. But a little bit too much firepower. Alistair Gray, Manlick at 1, Famba Byler at 2. That's a big hitting match right there. You want to see an indoor big boys match? Watch Luke Famba and Mason Byler hit the ball. There aren't going to be many rallies beyond 4 balls in that match. Jong and Emberg and Van Emberg at 3. Martinez Girsek at 4, Kruger Schlegetter at 5, and as I mentioned, Martin Hahn at 6. I think TCU gets out of there, 4-1, 4-0 type match fairly comfortably.
And of course, we will be monitoring that. We will be talking about all of this weekend's kickoff action on our Great Shot podcast early this week. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for our new rankings. We will update our Cracked Racquets top 10 poll, given that we have a couple of weekends of results now to work with. But more than anything, we are, again, so eternally grateful to all of you who joined us here throughout the course of the weekend. There were some cancellations, and, of course, did everything go perfectly? No, but we were able to do exactly what we wanted to do, which is provide the sort of coverage to all of you college tennis fans that we think you all deserve, of course. And with so many matches going around the country, it's hard to follow everything. We hope we made it just a little bit easier for all of you out there. And a huge thank you to all of the guests who joined us this weekend. A huge thank you, as always, to super producer Daniel Westoff, who on the 1s and 2s, he does this from his room, folks. You go to Daniel Westoff and you're like, hey, I have this idea for this thing I think we can try. Like, do you think you'll be able to do it? And he just kind of goes, yeah, give me 3 days. And then he pulls it off. So shout out to Daniel Westoff, as always. Shout out to you too, Chris, by the way, for joining us throughout the course of the weekend. And again, we will be back tomorrow. We will announce on social media, on our various channels, as soon as we know when that UCLA match is going to start. But Chris, your final thoughts on this ITA kickoff weekend?
Really just grateful to have college tennis back. That's first and foremost. Glad we're playing, glad to see everybody back. And can't wait to get these last 2 finals, 3 finals, actually, the North Carolina, the Michigan, and this USC region in the books, and look forward to that indoors in a couple weeks. But yeah, now that we're through this, I'm ready for those conference seasons to get here in a couple weeks as well.
Absolutely. Well, with that in mind, then, for the wonderful Chris Halioris, our super producer Daniel Westoff, and all of us here at Cracked Racquets, I am your host, Alex Gruskin. We thank all of you for joining our Cracked Racquets Redzone coverage of this 2021 ITA kickoff weekend. We will see you tomorrow for USC and UCLA. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone.
The amazing